So let's take a look at the structure of most receptions. Every reception's different. Yours is going to be unique, but this is a general structure that you need to kind of walk through mentally and decide how you're going to handle each thing, if you're going to do each thing, and then when. So let's look at it chronologically. Your guests arrive at the reception. Are you going to have a cocktail hour first? If so, you'll want to perhaps provide light hors d'oeuvres and bar service. You need to decide what type of bar service you're going to provide, whether it's a completely hosted bar, whether it's partially hosted, perhaps just beer, wine, and soft drinks, or whether you want to have a cash bar. A lot of this goes back to your budget and also to your family's entertainment style and what you feel your family and friends will expect when they get to the reception. Are you going to be at the cocktail hour, or do you want to make your entrance after that? A lot of brides and grooms make their entrance after that. So you'll want to be sure of the timing of when the guests will be seated into the main reception area. You'll want to be sure that your DJ or band are informed as to the timing and the style in which you want to be introduced. And then you need to keep an eye on the clock to be sure that you run on schedule so that everything else goes smoothly. So now you've been introduced and your guests are seated. There's several main events that happen during most receptions that you need to schedule time for. A very typical next thing is cutting the cake. The guests get to watch you cut the cake. You cut the cake, it's very romantic. And then the catering service has the opportunity to cut and plate the cake in time for dessert. But there's a reason that I suggest cutting the cake as well. First, it's one traditional meaning of the cutting of the cake and the feeding of the cake is that the bride and groom are exchanging the very first bites of food as a married couple, and it's something sweet to carry forward into their married lives to ensure that their marriage is going to be sweet. I just think that's a nice reason behind the cake cutting and the feeding of the cake. I really encourage you to feed each other the cake neatly, unless the cake smashing is just really, really in your personalities. Not only, like I said, is it a romantic thing to carry the sweetness forward in your life, but it also will really mess up your makeup if you get frosting all over your face. Trust me on this. Typically at that point, dinner is served. You may choose to have a buffet, or you may choose to have a seated dinner. If you're having a buffet, you're going to want to be sure that you have someone, and typically it's the DJ, but it could be whoever you select, go from table to table, releasing the people to go on up to the buffet. That way, everyone at the whole party isn't standing in line for a long time at the buffet. Just a small group of people go through at a time. Typically, you would start with the head table, yourself and your wedding party, and then your immediate families, and then proceed on to the other guests. Other things that will happen during the reception. You may choose to show some type of video, whether it's a photo montage, a love story, a same-day edit. A lot of times these are shown during dessert. Everyone's been through the buffet line or finished their plated dinner, and we've moved on to dessert. Showing a video can just be a nice interlude to kind of capture all the guests' attention back to focusing on you and the reception, because they've all been talking to their friends and talking to the family members, and it's all kind of relaxed. You can bring the focus back to you that way. Your first dance. A lot of times your first dance will happen at this point in the evening, usually followed by a dance with one or more of your parents and possibly a bridal party dance. This is where every family's traditions and unique interpretations come through. You may want to have that first dance with your father, but maybe your father can't attend, or maybe you're very close to your stepfather. Maybe your husband has an aunt that's been very special to him and he wants to be sure to dance with him. You just need to evaluate the important people in your life and decide how you want to include them, because that's completely up to you and your family and your personal decisions. Garter and bouquet are another thing that happen usually at some point after the first dance during the evening. So you need to decide, are you going to do the garter and bouquet? I'd say half to 3/4 of brides do that tradition, but that's up to you. If you decide to do that, do you want to have a separate, smaller bouquet that you can toss during the bouquet toss so that you can keep your own bouquet and preserve it or just keep it. You just might not want to throw it. That's what I'm saying. Do you want to wear two garters so that your husband can pull one of them off to throw to his gentleman, and you can still keep the garter that you wore at your wedding? And what type of garter and bouquet toss do you want to have? You need to look at your own personal style. Do you just want a fun, straightforward toss the garter and bouquet? Do you want the DJ or MC of your party to really egg on the guests to come up and make a lot of noise and have a lot of fun that way? Do you want the more suggestive version of your husband going up under your dress to get that garter off? Or do you want it a little bit more straightforward than that? Completely your style and how you want it, but once you decide what you want, you need to express that very clearly to your DJ so that they handle it in the way that you want it handled. And the last event, really, literally the last event, is your exit from the reception. If you want a send-off, if you want people with sparklers or bubbles, you need to think about doing that early enough in the evening that your guests are still there to do that. You'll usually lose the older crowd a little bit earlier into the evening. If your guests have a long way to drive to get home, 2-3 hours, then they're going to leave a little bit earlier to get where they need to go. So you need to consider the people that are going to be at your reception in deciding your timing on leaving. And again, this is up to you. You can leave and you can come back and have the rest of the party. That's not a big deal either. I've seen a lot of brides and grooms drive around for half an hour in the limo and come back to the party. So you just need to decide which elements of the reception of that type are important to you, and then plan for them and have a time frame for them to happen in. It's super important, and we'll talk further about people like bands and DJs, but it is super important that someone be running your reception. Whether it's a wedding coordinator at the facility, a wedding planner that you've hired, your DJ, an MC that works with your band, but someone needs to have the schedule, needs to keep an eye on the clock, needs to make sure that things happen when they're supposed to happen, and keep the evening moving forward. I generally recommend that that not be someone in your family, because first of all, they should just relax and have fun. It's their party too, they're celebrating with you, but it's also really easy for them to get distracted going to say goodbye to Uncle Martha as she's leaving and forget to announce the garter and bouquet toss, those types of things. So it's really better to have someone that's not personally involved with the wedding running the show. Now that we've looked at a broad overview of the schedule of your reception, in the following videos we're going to talk in more detail about each of the wedding professionals that you need to consider using to make your reception run smoothly.